Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Kargoz here with another World of Warcraft Classic Vanilla WoW video for you. This is going to be a quick one about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and that's Dual Spec. I don't play that much. I don't stream that much. I check in with you guys from time to time, and the Anniversary Realms went live recently, and the popular consensus is that Dual Spec is a big W. People really enjoy Dual Spec, the convenience, the quality of life. They're having more fun with the game, and they're totally entitled to their own opinion. Maybe they played the game just as much as me, and they just they know all this stuff already, but they're over it and they just like the convenience of it. But for whatever it's worth, I'm going to provide my 2 cents on why I think Dual Spec is a big L and why it tears from the fabric of the game that is Vanilla WoW. And that I think it's kind of cool that they're trying it with the Anniversary Realms. They're trying a lot of things, and Blizzard is a lot more open-minded to fresh and like the cyclical nature of this game and running it back and doing all that. So it's not that serious at the end of the day. But let's get right into it. I don't know if we're going to do pros or we're going to do cons first. I feel like the pros are kind of boring. Like, we get the pros. Like, in theory, less gold buying. It's more convenient. It's a more modern, fast-paced feel of the game because you're able to have a little bit more instant gratification, less barriers to entry going into, PvP and battlegrounds and ranking, farming specs, blah, 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 blah. But the cons are more interesting to talk about. I feel like there's a ton of cons to it as well, not to be a Debbie Downer or anything like that, but, this game, to me, is a sandbox. A lot of people don't consider it a sandbox, but I haven't played a ton of MMOs, so to me, it's a beautiful sandbox, and playing in it is fun. Trying different talent specs, and different talent specs having, like, weird little niche use cases where you're really good at dueling, but maybe, like, in a broader PvP environment, it's not the best, or, I'm thinking about Shadow Priest, I'm thinking about SL Warlock. I'm thinking about the totality of everything that is Vanilla WoW, from the leveling to the PvP to the PvE, and I've really participated in all of them, all of those aspects over the years. But just a general overarching thing is I feel like it's templating the game more. Dual Spec is templating the game. It's making BIS, and there's really almost less reason to be outside of your BIS talent spec setup. I feel like stuff like rogues are gonna, they're already an incredibly powerful class. PvP and PvE, and basically class balance isn't just, when you think about Vanilla WoW, class balance isn't how it is in other versions of WoW. Class balance has many different considerations. Like, part of the class balance is like how well classes can, how fast they can level, how efficient it is for them to level, what's their gold making like, what's the quality of life of the class. Like, yeah, sure, you can PvE in your BIS PvE setup, but that BIS PvE setup, is it decent at PvP? Can you still hold your own out in the open world? And for some classes, that's a yes, and for some classes, that's a no. And a big one is like Rogue, for example, right? Like, if they're combat swords or something like that, they they're going to struggle in PvP, but they're still an incredibly powerful class. There's no DR in Vanilla, so on stuff like blind and things like that. I mean, they have tons of options and CC options and gadgets and gizmos and items. Like, rogues can still be incredibly powerful. You know what I mean? And that's part of the class balance as well. It's not so much just the talents, it's all the other stuff outside of it. But anyway, I mean, what comes to mind is just tons of different specs that strike a good balance between PvP and PvE. And sometimes you would consider staying a certain spec because it's so expensive to respec. And that barrier to entry, that 50 gold respec fee, is very prohibitive. It stops you from having your cake and eating it too. It makes it so you really can't PvE and PvP unless you're swiping like Giga Hard. And what that does is it creates different communities within the server. And it's really, really tough to both rank and also raid. And I like that. I like the idea that the world feels bigger when you have your rankers and you have your raiders and you have your levelers, and they have their own different like subcultures, and there's less cross-pollination, and that might seem, I don't know, that might seem bad in a way to you guys, but it's kind of cool because I've been on both ends of it, right? You start raiding, and you want to get in line for weapons as a warrior. And, before you can earn that spot and get in line for weapons, a lot of these guilds require rank 10 or rank 11 or whatever it might be. So you want to, build up your resume and say like, oh, I've ranked to this amount, put me in, coach. So you take a break from raiding sometimes and you just go rank for a while and you get that done, you know, and you're living on that side of the server with the rankers. You know, if you're in Ironforge, you're living over, you know, in Darnassus, and you're chilling over there nonstop, and you're in the war room, and those are your people, right? Where if you're raiding, you know, most of the time you're maybe in Winterspring farming Firewaters, or you're just in different parts of the game, different parts of the world, doing different things. And I do kind of like that separation of church and state to a certain extent between raiders and rankers. Like I said, it makes the server feel bigger. I mean, I guess the downside is that there would be less participation in BGs because it's prohibitive and people don't have the money and the time, and it's a bit less accessible. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, you guys tell me. You're playing Anniversary Realms. Is the BG participation much higher? I feel like, you know, even if you're like a suboptimal spec and you're doing BGs, like, you can still make it work. Like, you can still be fine. You just use some consumes and, you know, you play a little bit differently, and you're not going to be at max power level, but you just live with it. And I think, like, not having dual spec allows you to just, like, come into contact with, you know, PvEers and people of all different specs. The game feels a little more diverse, a little more interesting, and I think there's more character identity. You know, that you're not just known as a shaman, you're known as, you know, as a resto shaman, or you're not just known as a you know, like, you know, a druid. You're known as like a you know, flag runner, sort of like resto. Well, you know, it's a pretty similar spec, but yeah, like the flag running spec. You have a little bit more identity, where dual spec, it homogenizes it more in a way. But maybe we're all past that, is my guess on what some of your guys' feedback is going to be. Like, come on, Kargoz, like, we all get this, man. Like, you've been saying the same thing for like fucking 10 years. Like, we get it. This is why what makes vanilla awesome. But we've played the game so much that, like, we don't need that stuff anymore. And I'm just trying to play the game and chill, and I don't have that much hours to do it. And to be like a purist, an idealist, that time is gone, and that's fair. But yeah, for maybe there's some people that don't know this stuff, so I'm providing my take on it. So let me look at this. The class balance overall, I think, is less interesting. People are going to be in their, like, you know, min-max bis setup pretty much at all times in world PvP, when raiding, and that's going to make some of the talents shine less. So also, and that ties into another point where I think that as a result of all this, there's a higher hybrid tax. So people talk about a hybrid tax, the idea that, you know, you're a jack of all trades, master of none type thing with druids, shamans, paladins, whatever. Hybrid tax, I'm not even sure if it's a real thing, but for lack of a better term, like, that's what I used. Where because people are able to be at the most max power level possible in PvE and PvP, and just choose, like, to the absolute nth degree, the most min-max setup, it makes the setups that aren't the most min-max powerful in their respective environments less good, less viable. I mean, there are some pros as well. I've thought about, like, you know, the experience being a warlock or something would probably be better. I don't know. And I guess even if you're not just doing PvP, you can run 2 different PvE specs, and, you know, you can mess with different gear sets, and the grass is always greener. I'm sure that there are some pros to it as well, but ultimately, this is my favorite game of all time, and I feel like the fabric of this game, the pacing, the way it's all structured and set up, it is perfect, actually. It's imperfectly perfect. Like, it is what it is. Like, you shouldn't change it. It is what it is. Don't mess with it. I realize I don't really want Classic Plus. I just want to accept this game with all of its flaws as an imperfectly perfect masterpiece. It is what it is. And messing with that, it kind of does rub me the wrong way. But most of you like dual spec, so let me know, like, why you like dual spec. What are the maybe some of the pros of dual spec that I'm not really considering, because maybe there are some. But I do feel like it meaningfully changes the journey. So I've played enough classes and enough servers over the years that you can kind of visualize each stage of the server, right? Like, if you're a hunter or you're a warrior, I mean, and what specs you're going, right? So, like, you're a hunter, you're leveling up as BM. Yo, you're as weak as you'll ever be. You're just getting your feet wet, you know. Maybe you just rock out BM for a little bit, and then you you know, go respec to entrapment, and because you're running tons of 5-mans and ubers and elbers, and you're chilling as an entrapment hunter for a while, and that's a really fun vibe, like being able to be an entrapment hunter unironically, and people aren't going to give you a hard time because it's still kind of early in the server lifespan, you know. I don't necessarily want to respec all the time with dual spec to just go the normal, you know, true shot aura build, or just the normal hunter like 2031 or whatever it is build, right? And just be fully min-maxed. It's kind of nice where you can justify like, oh, we don't have that much gear available to us right now, and gold is a real consideration, and you know, I am trying to rank as a hunter up to rank 8 or something and get like your knight lieutenant gear, whatever it might be. So you can just live as a hunter as entrapment spec in both PvE and PvP, and you're a little bit, you know, less min-max optimal than you could be for each one, but that's a vibe. And I'm sure with all the other classes, there's a spec that comes to mind where that's the case. So it does change the journey. It does impact how the class feels at each stage. I'm sure it impacts like itemization, all of it. When I think about economy too, I think there's probably economic implications as well, where certain classes don't have access to certain gold farms, and you know, the respec cost is so high, it truly is prohibitive at 50 gold, and you have to do different things, more diverse things to farm gold. You have to get a little bit creative. If you're a healer, maybe you're doing iron foe jump runs with a warrior buddy, or you're doing, you know, dire maul jump runs or something like that, or you're doing trash farms and you're organizing that and selling the BOEs. But I feel like in a world where you have access to dual spec and you can just press a button and be in your optimal farming spec, the farms get, you know, more like vertically integrated. I don't know if that makes sense, but like everyone's doing the same farms more so. So I ultimately feel the TLDR, sorry if I'm talking in circles here, but there's less diversity in the world, and the world gets more templated. And that's a big deal. If you care about the RPG aspect of it, if you care about, you know, having some pride and connection with your character and having a sense of identity on the server of like, this is how, you know, this is what I'm known for, whatever you call that. Like, that stuff's a real considerations, you know? Like, I sort of feel like we're past the point of like caring that much about the min-max. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just washed dad gamer. Highly possible. Almost certain. But, you know, do you guys really like dual spec? Make your case for it. Tell me why you enjoy dual spec. And think about it from the perspective of like the health and reputation of VanillaWoW, and how people will perceive VanillaWoW like moving forward. Because to me, even though I'm not playing that much, the idea that the perception is that VanillaWoW is a better game with dual spec, it really rubs me the wrong way. It's just not. Like, the people just like don't get it. Like, you know, and that's what it seems like to me. If I ask my chat, if I ask other people, is VanillaWoW better with dual spec? Comment down below. Is VanillaWoW better with dual spec? Be honest with me if that's how you feel. But I don't think it is. And that's it for me. Did have some specs prepared that we were going to go over, but we already talked for 13 minutes here. Thanks for watching. Again, it's not that serious. But I do love this game, and I care about its legacy, and I do care, you know, I do care about it, and yeah. Alright guys, see you next time.